Stop crying about who left you and start asking yourself why you needed them so desperately in the first place. The problem isn't that your best friend betrayed you, or your partner walked away, or your business partner screwed you over. The problem is that you built your entire sense of self on another human being who was always temporary. You handed someone else the keys to your happiness, your purpose, your identity. And now you're shocked that they drove away with it? It's not their fault. That's yours. And until you accept that brutal truth, you're going to repeat this pattern forever, jumping from person to person like a parasite looking for a new host, never realizing that the only person who was supposed to complete you was staring back at you in the mirror all along. You were not born into this world attached to another human being. Think about that for a moment. When you came into this existence, you came alone, one body, one mind, one spirit. And when your time comes to leave this earth, you will exit the same way you entered, alone. This is not a sad reality. This is not something to fear. This is the fundamental truth of your existence that you must understand if you're ever going to tap into the power that resides within you right now. Somebody listening to me is going through the most painful season of their life because someone left. Maybe it was a friend you trusted with your secrets. Maybe it was a business partner you built dreams with. Maybe it was a family member you thought would always be there. Maybe it was a lover who promised forever, and now they are gone. And you feel like you are drowning. You feel like you cannot breathe. You feel like you cannot function. You wake up reaching for a phone that does not ring anymore. You turn to speak to someone who is no longer there. And you are asking yourself, how do I survive this? Let me tell you about Rashid. Rashid worked at a textile factory for 25 years. 25 years. He started when he was 22 years old, fresh and full of energy. He became a supervisor by the time he was 30. The workers loved him. He knew every single person's name. He knew their children's names. He knew their struggles. Every morning he would arrive at 6 o'clock, and the factory floor would come alive with greetings. Good morning, Rashid. How are you today, boss? He was not just a supervisor. He was a friend. He was a counselor. He was the center of that community. Rashid built his entire identity around these relationships. His sense of worth came from being needed. His happiness came from the daily interactions. His purpose was tied to that factory and those people. When he went home at night, he would tell his wife stories about the workers. His weekends were spent attending their weddings, their children's birthdays, their family gatherings. His life was completely woven into the fabric of that place. Then one Tuesday morning in November, Rashid arrived at the factory at his usual time, but the gates were locked. There was a notice posted on the gate. The factory was closing permanently. Economic downturn, foreign competition, debts. The owner had disappeared in the night. No warning, no severance pay, no goodbye, just a locked gate and a piece of paper. Rashid stood there in shock. Within hours, workers started gathering. There was crying, there was anger. There were promises to stay in touch, to fight together, to support each other. Phone numbers were exchanged, social media groups were created. Everyone swore they would remain connected. For the first week, Rashid's phone never stopped ringing. Everyone was checking on everyone. But then the second week came, the calls reduced. People were busy looking for new jobs, dealing with their own survival. By the third week, the group chats went silent. By the end of the month, Rashid's phone barely rang at all. He could not understand it. These were people he had spent 25 years with. These were people he had helped, supported, celebrated with, mourned with. How could they just vanish? He would call them. Some would not answer. Some would answer and promise to meet up soon. But that soon never came. Rashid fell into a deep depression. He would sit in his house all day, staring at the walls. His wife begged him to snap out of it. His children encouraged him to look for another job. But he could not move. He felt paralyzed. Because Rashid had never learned how to be alone. He had never developed an identity separate from those relationships. He did not know who Rashid was without the factory, without the workers, without the daily validation. One evening, after 3 months of this darkness, Rashid was sitting in his small backyard. The sun was setting. Everything was quiet, and in that silence, something shifted inside him. He realized something profound. All those years, he thought he was necessary to them. But the truth was, he had made them necessary to him. He had given away his power. He had placed his sense of self in their hands. And when they left, they took his identity with them. But here is what Rashid discovered in that moment of silence. He was still breathing. His heart was still beating. His mind was still functioning. He was still here. They were gone, but he remained. This is what I need you to understand. You are designed to be complete within yourself. Not half of something waiting for another half. Not an incomplete puzzle needing pieces from other people. You are a whole being. Yes, relationships are beautiful. Yes, connection is powerful. Yes, community matters. But your ability to function, to thrive, to survive, cannot be dependent on another person's presence. Because here is the truth that nobody wants to tell you. Everyone leaves. Not because they are evil, not because they do not care, but because life is designed that way. People come into your life for seasons. Some seasons are long, some are short, but every season ends. Your parents will leave you, either by death or distance. Your children will leave you because they must build their own lives. Your friends will leave you because paths diverge. Your partners might leave you because people change. Your colleagues will leave you because careers shift. This is not pessimism. This is reality. And the sooner you accept this reality, the sooner you can build a foundation that cannot be shaken when people exit your life. Society has programmed you to fear being alone. From the time you were a child, you were taught that being alone means something is wrong with you. If you eat lunch by yourself, you are a loner. If you go to the cinema alone, people pity you. If you are not in a relationship, people ask, what is wrong? So you learn to attach yourself to people, not because you genuinely connect, but because you are terrified of the alternative. You are terrified of yourself. But I want to challenge that programming today. What if being alone is not a curse, but a classroom? What if solitude is not punishment, but preparation? What if the times when everyone leaves are actually the times when you finally meet the most important person you will ever know, yourself? We live our lives believing in permanence. We meet people and we assume they will stay forever. We build routines and we think tomorrow will always look like today. We create partnerships and we never consider an ending. This is the greatest illusion that will ever break your heart. Nothing in this life is permanent except change itself. But we do not accept this. We hold on tighter, we make more promises, we create more commitments, and then when the inevitable happens, when the person leaves, when the situation changes, when the door closes, we crumble, we fall apart. We say, I never saw it coming. But the signs were always there. We just refused to see them because we are addicted to the comfort of the illusion. Let me tell you about Fatima. Fatima had a dream of owning a restaurant. She loved cooking since she was a little girl, learning recipes from her grandmother. When she was 28 years old, she finally saved enough money to start something small. But she was scared to do it alone. So she brought in two of her closest friends, Zainab and Layla. They had been friends since college. They had been through everything together. Breakups, graduations, weddings. These were not just friends. These were sisters. The three of them opened a small restaurant in the downtown area. They called it Three Spoons. Each of them had a role. Fatima was the head chef. Zainab managed the finances and operations. Layla handled marketing and customer relations. And it worked beautifully. The restaurant became popular. Lines formed outside during lunch hours. Food bloggers wrote about them. They won local awards. For 15 years, they ran that restaurant together. 15 years of laughter in the kitchen. 15 years of solving problems together. 15 years of splitting profits equally. 15 years of saying, we will never be like other business partners who fight over money. We are family. Then one day, Zainab came to Fatima with a proposal. She wanted to expand. She wanted to open 2 more locations. She had been talking to investors. But here is what she had not told Fatima. She had been planning this for months. She and Layla had been meeting in secret. They had already drafted new partnership agreements. Agreements that would reduce Fatima's ownership from 1/3 to 15%. They told Fatima she could stay as head chef. But the business would go in a new direction. When Fatima refused, when she said this was not what they had built together, Zainab and Layla gave her an ultimatum. Accept the new terms or they would buy her out. Fatima could not believe what she was hearing. These were her friends, her sisters. How could they do this? She tried to reason with them. She reminded them of all the years, all the struggles they had overcome together, all the promises they had made. But their minds were made up. They offered her a sum of money that was far less than her share was worth. She refused. So they took legal action. And because Zainab had been handling the finances all those years, he had structured certain documents in ways that gave her more control. The legal battle lasted 8 months. It drained Fatima emotionally and financially. In the end, she lost. She lost the restaurant. She lost her investment. She lost 15 years of her life. And she lost her friends the day she walked out of that restaurant for the last time. Fatima sat in her car and could not drive. She just sat there, staring at the building that had been her whole world. She thought about every recipe she had perfected in that kitchen, every customer who had become like family, every early morning she had arrived to prep ingredients, every late night she had stayed to clean. It was all gone, taken by the very people she trusted most. For months, Fatima could not cook. The smell of food made her sick. She could not walk past restaurants without feeling rage and pain. She spent her days in bed, replaying every conversation, every moment, trying to understand how she missed the signs. Her husband begged her to move on. Her children worried about her, but she was stuck. She had invested everything into those relationships. She had trusted completely, and now she felt like a fool. Then one night, around 2 a.m, Fatima could not sleep. She went to her kitchen at home. She stood there in the darkness, and slowly she turned on the light. She opened her refrigerator. She looked at the ingredients, and something inside her stirred. Not for Zainab, not for Layla, not for the restaurant, but for herself. She realized in that moment that they did not take her gift away. They took a building, they took a name, they took a partnership, but they could not take what was inside her. The recipes were still in her mind. The skills were still in her hands. The creativity was still in her spirit. Everything she needed to start again was still right there within her. Fatima started cooking from her home. She began taking small catering orders. 1 order became 2, 2 became 5. Within a year, she had a full catering business running from her kitchen. Within 2 years, she opened her own small cafe, not as big as 3 Spoons, but it was fully hers. Nobody could take it. Nobody could vote her out. And here's the most powerful part of the story. Her new business became more successful than the old one, because this time, she was not building on the foundation of friendship or partnership. She was building on the foundation of self. She knew what she was capable of. She knew she could survive the worst betrayal and still create something beautiful. You see, Fatima learned what many of us refuse to learn. Relationships have seasons. People serve purposes in your life for specific periods. When that purpose is complete, they leave. Sometimes they leave peacefully. Sometimes they leave with betrayal. Sometimes they leave with silence, but they leave. And if your entire identity, your entire security, your entire sense of worth is wrapped up in them, you will fall when they go. But if you understand that you are the foundation, that everything you need is already within you, then their departure becomes painful but not destructive. You grieve, yes. You feel the loss, yes, but you do not collapse. Because you know how to stand alone. This is the lesson that saved Fatima's life, and this is the lesson that will save yours. But let me go deeper. Because I know some of you are sitting there thinking, but I am not like Fatima. I do not have a special skill. I do not have a business. All I had was that person, and now they are gone, and I have nothing left. That is the lie your pain is telling you. That is the story your fear is writing, but it is not the truth. Let me tell you about Marcus. Marcus grew up without a father. His mother worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table. He raised himself in many ways, learning early that people are unreliable. So when he met Jennifer at university, and she showed him genuine love and attention, something inside him opened up that had been closed his entire life. Jennifer was everything his chaotic childhood was not. She was stable, she was present, she was consistent. For the first time in his life, Marcus felt like he belonged to someone. They dated for 2 years, then got engaged. Marcus built his entire world around Jennifer. He chose his career based on what would allow them to build a life together. He moved to a city he did not particularly like because that is where her family was. He let friendships fade because he and Jennifer were enough for each other. He stopped going to the gym because their evenings were for cooking together. He stopped playing guitar because their weekends were for house projects. Slowly, piece by piece, Marcus dismantled himself and rebuilt his identity around their relationship. Jennifer was his alarm clock in the morning. She was his motivation to work hard. She was his entertainment in the evening. She was his counselor when he was stressed. She was his purpose. When people asked Marcus what he enjoyed doing, he could not answer because Marcus did not do things anymore. Marcus and Jennifer did things. He was no longer an individual. He was half of a unit then. 3 months before their wedding, Jennifer came home from work and said 4 words that shattered Marcus's entire existence. I cannot do this. She had been having doubts for months but kept pushing them down, hoping they would disappear. But they did not disappear. They grew. She loved Marcus, but she was not in love with Marcus. She cared for him, but she did not want to marry him. She was sorry, but she had to be honest. She could not walk down that aisle knowing in her heart this was not right. Marcus begged. He promised to change. He asked what he did wrong. He suggested couples therapy. He offered to postpone the wedding. He offered everything except the one thing Jennifer needed, which was to leave. 2 weeks later, she moved out. 1 month later, she was dating someone else, someone she worked with, someone she had insisted was just a friend. And Marcus's world collapsed. He stopped going to work. He was fired within 3 weeks. He stopped paying rent. He was evicted within 2 months. He moved back in with his mother at 31 years old, sleeping in his childhood bedroom. He would lie there for 16 hours a day, staring at the ceiling. His mother would bring him food, and he would not eat it. She would beg him to shower, and he would not move. He lost 40 pounds in 2 months. His friends tried to reach out, but he pushed them all away. What was the point? Everyone leaves anyway. One afternoon, Marcus's mother had enough. She walked into his room, opened the curtains, and said, "Get up. You are coming with me." Marcus protested, but his mother was not asking. She dragged him out of bed, forced him into the car, and drove him 2 hours to a place he had not been since he was 7 years old, a lake house that his grandfather used to own before he passed away. The house was old and run down now, but it was still standing. His mother gave him the keys and said, "Your grandfather left this house to you in his will. I've been paying the property taxes all these years, waiting for the right time to give it to you. This is that time. You are going to stay here for 1 month. No phone, no internet, just you. And you are going to remember who you were before Jennifer, before anyone. You are going to find Marcus again." Marcus wanted to refuse, but he had no fight left in him, so he stayed. The first week was torture. The silence was deafening. He had nothing to distract himself from his thoughts. No scrolling, no streaming, no texting, just him and the echo of his own mind. He would walk around the lake, and his thoughts would scream at him, Jennifer is with someone else right now. Jennifer is happier without you. The pain was unbearable. But then, in the second week, something strange started happening. The thoughts were still there, but they started to lose their power. Because Marcus was still breathing. He was still waking up every morning. The sun was still rising. The birds were still singing. The world had not ended, even though it felt like it should have. And slowly, very slowly, Marcus started to notice things he had not noticed in years. He noticed that he enjoyed the silence of early morning. He noticed that he liked the way the light hit the water at sunset. He found his grandfather's old toolbox in the garage and started fixing small things around the house. A broken step, a leaking faucet, a door that would not close properly. And with each repair, something inside Marcus was also being repaired. He was remembering that he had hands that could build. He had a mind that could solve problems. He had strength that did not come from Jennifer's validation. In the third week, Marcus found an old guitar in the closet. It was out of tune and dusty, but it was there. He spent an entire afternoon just tuning it, remembering the chords he used to know. And when he finally played a full song for the first time in years, he cried. Not because he was sad, but because he remembered who he used to be. He used to be someone who created music. He used to be someone who found joy in simple things. He used to be someone before he gave all of himself away to another person. By the fourth week, Marcus had established a routine. He would wake up with the sunrise. He would make breakfast for himself. He would spend the morning working on the house. He would spend the afternoon walking or reading. He would spend the evening playing guitar. And for the first time since Jennifer left, Marcus went an entire day without thinking about her. Not because he was trying to forget her, but because he was too busy remembering himself. When his mother came to pick him up at the end of the month, she barely recognized him. He had gained weight back. There was color in his face. There was light in his eyes. He hugged her and said, "Thank you, you saved my life." And she replied, "No, son, you saved your own life. I just gave you the space to do it." Marcus moved into the lake house permanently. He got a job at a local construction company. He started playing guitar at a small coffee shop on weekends. He made new friends who knew him as Marcus, not as Jennifer's ex-fiancé. And here is what Marcus learned. Jennifer did not leave him with nothing. She left him with himself. And that was more than enough. This is what I need you to understand. When everyone leaves, when you are stripped of all the relationships you thought defined you, you are not left with emptiness. You are left with opportunity. The opportunity to discover what you are made of when nobody is watching. The opportunity to build a life that does not crumble when someone exits it. The opportunity to become so complete within yourself that people become additions to your life, not the foundation of it. But here is the hard truth. Most people never learn this lesson. Most people go from one codependent relationship to another. They lose themselves in a friendship. And when that friend leaves, they immediately find another friend to lose themselves in. They build their identity around a job. And when that job ends, they panic and grab the first new job they can find without ever asking what they actually want. They define themselves by their romantic relationship. And when that relationship ends, they jump into a new one within weeks because they cannot stand to be alone with themselves. Why? Because being alone forces you to confront everything you have been running from. Your fears, your insecurities, your mistakes, your regrets, your true desires, your authentic self. And that confrontation is terrifying. It is easier to fill your life with noise, with people, with distractions, than it is to sit in the silence and face yourself. But the people who master the art of being alone are the people who become unstoppable. Because once you know that you can survive the worst loss, the deepest loneliness, the most painful abandonment, and still stand, still create, still thrive, what can anyone ever take from you again? Nothing. They can leave, they can betray you, they can disappoint you. And it will hurt, yes, you will grieve, yes, but you will not break. Because you are not built on them. You are built on you. So if you are reading this right now, and everyone has left, I want you to hear me clearly. This is not your ending. This is your beginning. This is not the worst thing that could happen to you. This is the wake-up call you needed. This is your chance to stop living through other people and start living through yourself. This is your opportunity to build something that nobody can take away because it exists inside you, not outside you. Stop waiting for someone to come back. Stop hoping for reconciliation. Stop checking their social media. Stop replaying the memories. Stop torturing yourself with what ifs. They are gone. Accept it. Grieve it. And then let it go. Because every second you spend holding on to someone who left is a second you are not spending building the life that is waiting for you. You are complete, you are whole, you are enough. Not because someone told you so, not because someone chose you, but because you exist. You came into this world alone, and you will leave it alone. And everything in between is your journey to discover that being alone is not the same as being lonely. Being alone is where you find your power. Being alone is where you build your foundation. Being alone is where you become the person you were always meant to be before the world taught you to need validation from others. So embrace it. Learn to enjoy your own company. Take yourself on dates. Cook yourself beautiful meals. Have conversations with yourself. Invest in your own growth. Build your own dreams. And when people come into your life, and they will be adding to something that is already whole, not filling a void that makes you desperate and dependent. Everyone leaves. This is the truth, but you remain, and that is your power.